Okay, so for math, grade 11, we'll be doing a few examples of how to solve equations. First, we'll see what does it mean to solve an equation. So look here, we have 5x minus 6, and we add equals 0. The reason we solve with equals 0 is that on a graph, it's really easy to find that value. It's on the x-axis. So if we look here, on the x-axis, the blue line, which is actually the graph of 5x minus 6, it's crossing it at exactly x equals 1.2. We have a y equals 6, but that's not a solution. It has to be where it touches the x-axis. In the second one, you'll notice it's a parabola, and it has two solutions. So we'll have to use a different technique for this one. We'll do the first one, and we will start by pretending we want to evaluate to see what BEDMAS says, because then we have to use reverse BEDMAS. The reason we do that is because the x is only one time in the equation. If it's there more than once, we have to use a different technique. So whenever you see the x single time, we do reverse BEDMAS. So we will do reverse BEDMAS. So we don't have any brackets, we don't have any exponents, and we don't have any divisions. So the BED are taken care of. So we're up to the m, multiplication. We do have one. It's the 5 multiplied by x. So if I were to solve this, if I knew the value of x, I would have to multiply by 5 at first. And then the last operation would be minus 6. Now, since we don't want to evaluate, we want to solve, we have to do reverse BEDMAS. So that's reverse order, reverse operation. So instead of minus 6 as the second operation, we do plus 6 as the first one. And instead of times 5 as the first operation, we divide by 5 as the second operation. Now we don't want to look at this part, we just want to solve. So plus 6. So we do plus 6 as the first operation on each side of our equal. We want to keep our balance. So we have 5x plus nothing remains 5x. Minus 6 plus 6 equals 0. And 0 plus 6 is just positive 6. So this is done. First part, plus 6. Now we're left with a divide by 5. We have to do this on each side of our equal sign again. Now 5 divided by 5 simplifies to 1. And we're left with 1x. We won't bother writing the 1. And then 6 divided by 5 on a calculator will give you 1.2. You can also write 1 and 1/5, but 1.2 is fine. So this is the answer, the actual solution, the same as we can see on the graph. So for the second one, when the x appears more than once, you have to do what's called factoring. So this has to be done. So you have to factor because the x appears twice. Now there's more than one technique for factoring. The one we'll be using here is simply a common dividing factor. You'll notice that the x appears everywhere. So the x is common, and we also have a 3 that divides well into 3 and 15. So that will be our common factor. The 3 is common, and the x is factored. Now it's common because it divides into everything. So if we divide the first term here, 3x squared by 3x, 3 goes into 3 one times, x squared divided by x, to use the exponent rules, is left there once. So we only have x left. Then we divide minus 15 by 3, because you have to apply the division to each term. So that will be minus 5. And x equals, divided into x, goes one time. So we don't write the 1. Finish there, because minus 5 times 1 is only minus 5. So we say equals 0. So once you've factored, you have to use the zero theorem. So the zero theorem says if you multiply anything by 0, the rest of the expression will be 0. So that means if the 3x equals 0, it's through that 3x multiplied by x minus 5 equals 0, because we won't care what x minus 5 is. That theorem also tells us that if x minus 5 equals 0, then the whole expression will also equal 0. So that's a zero theorem. Now, how do we find just x? On the left here, we have 3 multiplied by x. We will do the opposite, which is divide. So 3 divided by 3 simplifies to 1. 0 divided by 3 is definitely 0. You don't have to worry about division by 0 here. Careful, you can't divide by 0, but you can divide 0 by anything. So x equals 0 is our first solution. In the second case, we want to do the opposite operation of minus 5. So it will be plus 5 on each side of the equal. We put that together. X equals 5. So those are our two solutions. X equals 0, x equals 5, just like we could see in the graph. So if you have a graphing calculator, if you use the internet, you can use a software like BEDMAS. Write it down. Just put that in Google and you'll find the link for it. You will be able to actually see that graph and you'll see where it's crossing the x-axis. You'll see it's always the right answer when you do it that way. So those were the two easy ones, and easy factoring, the style of factoring you would learn in grade 9, and inverse BEDMAS also that you should have mastered in grade 9. So for other videos, we'll go to more complex types.